Here's OJ Simpson passes away. Let's go to Anthony Slater, who's in Portland. I don't know if he's in Portland. Anthony, good morning, man. You in Portland today?
I am in Sacramento. I'm going to Kings Pelicans tonight, which, by the way, I think is an even bigger game for the Warriors than their own game.
Absolutely it is, because we've been breaking down the playoff scenario. But first, because we will pivot back to OJ Simpson, so let's just get this out of the way. You're around our age, Anthony. I'm sure you remember 1994. We're all watching the NBA Finals, Rockets and Knicks. OJ Simpson passes away. What goes through your head when you hear that?
I don't know. I mean, I watched the 94. I was 4 in 94, so I don't remember being locked into that. But that the 30 for 30 they did on it, which was like a real time 30 for 30, I thought was really good. You know, and it kind of brought you, the way it was made, kind of brought you to that day a little bit better than I remembered when I was 4. So it's interesting. It's definitely like shocking news to wake up to. I'm not sure I got some grand take on it, and y'all probably need to be careful on that.
Oh yeah, no, I feel indifferent. I don't know how to feel about it. It's just reporting the news and who he was before everything that happened, and like he was this broadcaster at NBC, polished Hertz commercials, polished broadcaster.
One of the biggest falls from grace I can think of
as a sports athlete
ever. I mean, you're talking about one of the greatest players to ever play the game. It's crazy.
Yeah, for sure, sure. And
go ahead, Anthony.
Kind of a weird post whatever you want to call it, the last 10 years or so. I mean, even like kind of became like a gambling face. It was in Vegas at times. I don't know.
Yeah. No doubt. Yeah. We're not, no, there will be no tweets from us about this situation. We'll just talk about how fans feel, like just kind of discussing the guy here. But let's move on to basketball, because it is starting to heat up in the NBA. Last night, Nuggets and T-Wolves, a really good game in Denver. The Suns struggling with the G League Clippers last night. The Suns don't look right, but you're right. We laid out the scenario here. The Warriors have to go 3-0 for a chance at the A seed. But what's more likely, the Kings losing 2 of 3 or the Pelicans losing all 3? Because I could see, Anthony, the Pelicans losing tonight and then tomorrow night to the Warriors, but then the Lakers will say, why do we need to play on Sunday? We're locked into 10, and therefore the Pelicans can get that win to keep the Warriors at 9. But I do agree, tonight's game up in Sacramento is huge for the Golden State Warriors.
Well, it also would depend on you're talking about the last game of the regular season, who do the Lakers want to play at the 9? That could be important. You know, if they beat the Pelicans that day, they're in New Orleans. They could stay in New Orleans and play an extra game. But that's, do they think they have a better chance of beating the Pelicans than flying to San Francisco and beating the Warriors? I don't know. As far as, like, who should the Warriors root for, like, it's almost one of those scenarios where, like, whoever loses, like, then you root for a different game. Because the one thing about the Kings is the Kings have a hard game the next night against the Suns, and you need the Kings to lose twice. But then the Kings finish at home against the Blazers. On a day that Blazers team, which is a G League team, essentially also will be, 2 hours from vacation. So I don't know how hard they're going to be going for that one. So it's whoever loses tonight, you have one more chance at a loss, which is, Warriors obviously have to beat the Pelicans, but the Pelicans on that final day of the regular season, or the Suns coming to Sacramento Friday night and also beating the Kings. And then the other thing, I don't know, I feel like this is being lost. Like, Warriors got to go 3-0. If they don't go 3-0, they're going to be the 10, probably, because I think Lakers could win the final 2. So that's not off the table. At this point, I think 9 is most likely, then 10, then 8.
Okay. It feels like their entire season shifted when they essentially switched off Looney and Saric too, and went to Trace Jackson Davis, and particularly in that starting lineup. Is that one of the most surprising moves the Warriors have made over the last 4 or 5 years in terms of roster from what they had? Not an acquisition, just utilizing a roster piece in a different way.
Maybe. I don't know. There's been so many over the last 5 years, including like starting Wiseman his first game, redoing the rotation last year where suddenly Ty Jerome and Anthony Lamb are in it. JaMychal Green starting in game 1, I think it was, as the second round last season. Klay Thompson getting benched this year. I didn't know that was ever going to happen. It did. I don't know. I like so many that I can think of, but it will, significance it ended up being big this time around. I would say the season term when Draymond returned from suspension, and yes, he went small ball center for most of it. Now they've kind of flipped that, and he's not doing that as much. But I think they're 12 25 and 11 in the last 36.
Yep.
And I think that's primarily since Draymond's been back. And I think it is. I think what we've most learned is that when this team is whole, when Draymond Green is on the court and able and eligible, they're a good team. They're a 4-5 type seed. Yeah. So that's like the biggest key for them, not only health, but like Draymond Green's eligibility.
Yeah, in the 25 games Draymond didn't play, the Warriors were 11-14. You got to think that flips if he is available for those games, whether it's due to suspension or injury here. But Draymond Green offensively, we talk about this a lot, Anthony, and you see Bully before the game, and the Warriors are now talking about the coaching staff and everybody, that when he's aggressive offensively and he's letting it fly from the three-point line, he shot a career high from three. I know most of those threes come in the first half, but still, 5 made threes in the first half against the LA Lakers, and all of a sudden they got to start, oh, wait, we got to get up on this guy. And it opens up the floor for everybody else, like a Klay, like a Steph, like an Andrew Wiggins. When he's aggressive offensively, if you just look at the last 3 years, when he's aggressive offensively, the Warriors are nearly unbeatable there. So I guess Draymond Green said it was mental. How much have you talked about him maybe letting it fly a little bit more offensively?
Yeah, I remember he got undercut by JaVale McGee. And this would have been what year, like 2017-18 range, and fell down and injured his shoulder, and like his hips were bothering him at the time. He talked about it the other night, particularly the hips. But physically, I think his shot took a hit when he was like in the early Durant years. And then, so he stopped shooting the three, and then, Durant's around. Remember, he stopped being a scorer because it was like, you didn't need to on that team.
Right.
And that's where I think he just lost the shot. It hasn't come back. It still hasn't, defenses are not going to suddenly go into tonight's game, like, scared of him from three. But he's hitting it at a more reasonable clip this year. Maybe he says it's some of the mind, some of the body. But it's a major thing. I think what's even more important offensively is when he's doing those, like, DHOs to the rim or, just the straight line attacks and layups. Like when he's making the layups, I think that's bigger to like kind of screw with the defense, because the defense is playing him to pass, particularly on the drive. They want to bait him into the floater, bait him into making a bad pass and a turnover because he's just, so thirsty to pass. Where when he's just like straight line drive, okay, nobody's coming over, I'm going to slip a layup in. That's when I think suddenly the centers, the Jaren Jacksons of the world, the Steven Adams, whoever, name your center over there, that's when they have to kind of change up what they do.
There's been a lot of talk. Obviously, Klay joined Draymond on his podcast. His father's been on multiple stations locally. He was with the Willard and Dibbs. And what's your sense right now? Is Klay coming back next year?
We'll see. I think what happens to the close of the season matters. If they flame out, and if the Warriors management ownership suddenly has a desire to like really limit spending because they just spent historically and got a 9-10 seed that flamed out on April 18th with 0 playoff home games and made 0 playoff money. That might again like lessen the motivation to like really kind of throttle up the cash extinguisher. So then what would and then the other thing is, what will he get on the open market? He's played himself, I think, into a much more, more likely payday. We'll see what that payday is. And then, I think the negotiations that happen in, illegally, I guess you could say, in May and June, before July will matter. Clearly with Draymond Green, we didn't know, and he didn't know, and he thought there was a time, he said it, there was a time he thought he was going to Memphis, and the Warriors ended up paying up and giving him the deal. I think, end of the day, just because it's always been proven that the Warriors, Joe Lacob, ends up paying and trying to bring back, like, the core guys, like he did with Steve Kerr, like he tried to do with Bob Myers, like he's always done with Steph Curry, like they tried to do with KD, right? KD would have still been there if he wanted to be. I do think they probably get something done. But I do think how this season ends and the taste that's in everybody's mouth, Klay's mouth, the Warriors' mouth, I think that matters.
Yeah, Anthony Slater here on the Morning Roast on 95.7 The Game, our 95.7 The Game insider, joins us every single week. He'll be in Sacramento covering the Pels and the Kings tonight. Huge game and huge ramifications for the Golden State Warriors, whatever happens up there in Sacramento tonight. Jonathan Kuminga just returned for 2 games, and obviously he's a polarizing player around these parts. Came back against Utah, 9 of 11, a double-double, but that's Utah. Struggled a bit against the Lakers early on. I thought he was key in that stretch when they outscored the Lakers 16-5 at the end of the third quarter. He played some big minutes in the fourth quarter as they put the Lakers away. What's your read on J.K. and his role moving forward here? Obviously, he's not going to start. They're going to roll with TJD and Draymond in the front court. But how's Jonathan Kuminga taking it behind the scenes, Anthony?
I mean, I'm curious to see what his minute totals are over like a chunk of games, particularly playoff games. I think one of the things that was at the core of the issue even early this season was how the playoffs played out last year, because he did close the last regular season playing 20-something minutes a night, and then he went from that to basically DMPs the entire playoffs. And that is when coaches show their deepest trust level in players, right? Like when a playoff series shrinks, when minute totals of your better players go up and your lesser players go down, like who do you trust in those moments? And like, does Steve Kerr trust Jonathan Kuminga in a potential playoff series against Denver? Is he going to play him down the stretch? Is he going to play him 25 to 30 minutes? I think Kuminga's earned trust. Now, the lineup combination issues that have presented himself, I think, have complicated things, because Trayce Jackson-Davis is playing well enough. You need to get him a lot of minutes. Draymond Green is guaranteed to play a lot of minutes, and it seems they've decided those three can't play together in a lineup combination for spacing purposes. I understand that thought from a basketball perspective, but that's probably going to limit then one of the three's minutes on any given night. Some nights it'll probably be Trayce Jackson-Davis, particularly if Kuminga's playing well. He wasn't playing that well the other night in L.A., right? So what did he finish with, 21 minutes?
21 minutes, yep.
Yeah, that's low for him. If that's a nightly thing, I'm not sure he's necessarily going to love that. And I understand that, he wouldn't. But we'll see. He's only played 2 games back, and the first game was like, he was probably 28-ish minutes and finished with like a double-double. So we'll see. I don't know. He's not, I will say this, he's not going to suddenly shrink like into the background and he's getting, 10 minutes a night. I think he's guaranteed in the 20 range, and that's probably dependent night by night how he's playing, especially early in his stints, if that moves more towards 30.
All right, Warriors playing some good ball right now, 25-11, 16-4 in their last 20 road games. Do you believe, before we get set for the play, that the Warriors have a deep run in front of them? We keep hearing from Steve Kerr and members of this team that they have a deep run. Now, it depends on the back. Like, if they play Denver in the first round, that could be trouble. You play OKC in the first round, I think you got action there. What do you believe the prospects are for this team moving forward here, Anthony, during this playoff run?
Yeah, well, I mean, what you mentioned is important, and it seems like OKC, I don't know if it is intentional at all, but it's kind of played themselves out of that 1-2 or is kind of nudging that way. And, that helps them avoid the Lakers, which I think is the matchup they really don't want to face, just from a size standpoint. But I think OKC is probably going to be 3 and get maybe Phoenix, Kevin Durant, and OKC, which will be interesting.
Anthony, they're tied for 2 right now with Minnesota, and they played Milwaukee and Dallas in the last 2 games. You got to figure that Dallas may rest their guys because they don't have a tiebreaker over the Clippers. In Minnesota, maybe they both go 2-0, but I believe OKC has the tiebreaker.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's there. Jalen Williams has been in and out of the lineup. Shea's missed some games. It's just I haven't felt the hunger from the Thunder to necessarily be up. They're certainly to get up to 1, but 1 would be the only way at this point. Well, the Lakers, I guess, could still climb. But
yeah.
I mean, to answer your question, I think I agree with you that if the Warriors can somehow get in a series where they're facing Minnesota or the Thunder, like, we're going to be watching that intently. The experts will probably be picking either Wolves or Thunder in 7, or even like there'll be some Warriors in 6 type upset choices. I think those first 2 games would be interesting to see if the Warriors could get one of them. Like, could we be talking 3 weeks from now and the Warriors are in the second round and threatening in a second round series? Sure. Like, that is on the table. But also on the table is they're eliminated like 5-6 days from whatever.
Right.
Next Wednesday night, next Friday night. Like, there's probably a 50% chance of that at least.
What a season. What a season, man. I can't wait to see how this unfolds. Anthony, we'll be following your work up in Sacramento, man. Have fun at the G1C.
All right, fellas.
All right, Anthony. Anthony Slater, one of the good guys, man. Our 95.7 The Game Insider here on the Morning Roast. And
kind of like a